November 22nd, 1963, a date etched into the American consciousness. It was a day that began with hope and ended in profound tragedy. The city was Dallas, Texas. The subject, the 35th President of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. But this journey would end in an instant that changed America forever. The sun was bright, and the streets were packed. Thousands had gathered, waving and cheering for the charismatic young leader. The presidential motorcade moved slowly, an open invitation to the adoring public, a symbol of openness and progress. Yet, beneath the surface of celebration, a quiet tension was building. The subtle, yet ever-present, movements of the security detail hinted at the vulnerability of power. Then, at 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the world, for a brief, shattering moment, stood still. In Dealey Plaza, under the midday sun, the gunfire erupted, forever marking the time and the place of an irreversible moment. The cheers were instantly replaced by confusion, then terror. Crowds scattered, unable to process the violence that had just shattered the motorcade's calm procession. The remaining Secret Service detail acted instantly, transforming the presidential limousine into an emergency vehicle racing toward Parkland Hospital. The news spread like wildfire, carried by the frantic voices of broadcast journalists. Within hours, headlines screamed the incomprehensible truth. The leader of the free world was gone. The shock was immediate and profound, paralyzing the nation and resonating across the globe. America was suddenly plunged into an unprecedented era of mourning and uncertainty. But the tragedy of a president's death was only the beginning of a story that continues to divide historians and capture the public imagination. This single event did not just mark an end. It initiated the most debated and scrutinized event in modern American history, a mystery rooted in that very afternoon. The quick arrest of Lee Harvey Oswald as the lone assassin raised more questions than it answered, setting the stage for decades of speculation. The scant visual evidence and the conflicting accounts only fueled the fire, transforming the tragic loss into a continuous, desperate search for the complete truth. Over half a century later, the shadows of Dealey Plaza still loom large. Today, Dealey Plaza is a quiet space, marked by memorials, but the echoes of November 22nd, 1963 remain deafening. The assassination remains a deep scar on the American psyche, a moment when innocence was lost, and the true story of power and secrets was perhaps just beginning. The morning of November 22nd, 1963, dawned over Dallas, Texas. It was a day of political pageantry, but for a nation, it would become the start of an endless shadow. Across the city, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. This was, outwardly, a routine presidential visit, a chance for a charismatic leader to connect with the people. Dallas, a city of growth and complex political tensions, prepared itself for the arrival of President John F. Kennedy. From the moment the wheels touched down at Love Field, the planned motorcade route through downtown Dallas was meant to be a display of unity and democratic engagement. Behind the scenes, the mechanisms of security were already in motion. Every detail of the presidential escort was meticulously checked and rechecked. Secret Service agents and local police conferred over logistics, a standard security protocol that, on this day, held an unimaginable consequence. The open-top Lincoln Continental, centerpiece of the parade, was polished and positioned, waiting to carry the hopes and dreams of a generation. The route was fixed, a short turn off Main Street, leading directly through the triple underpass at Dealey Plaza, a route chosen for its accessibility and visibility. As the morning wore on, the city awakened with excitement. Families gathered, students skipped class, all eager for a glimpse of the President and First Lady. Thousands lined Main Street, their faces alight with enthusiasm. This was a moment of civic pride, a vibrant snapshot of American optimism. At the route's terminus lay Dealey Plaza, a landscaped triangle of grass and trees. On that morning, it looked like any other public park. Security personnel took up their designated posts. Their presence was intended to offer reassurance, a thin veil between civic event and the world's harsh realities. Each officer watched their sector, monitoring the eager crowds, unaware that the true threat lay above and ahead. The route passed directly beneath towering structures. Among them, the Texas School Book Depository, a building of industry, soon to be immortalized in darkness. The clock was running out on a moment of normalcy. All elements were converging: the route, the crowds, and the high-profile target. At Love Field, the presidential party gathered, exchanging last words and smiles before embarking on the final leg of their journey through Dallas. The motorcade began its procession, a slow, deliberate movement into the heart of the city, met by the roaring cheers of the assembled public. Minutes stretched into seconds. Every turn brought the motorcade closer to that crucial, fateful patch of asphalt in Dealey Plaza. The world watched, waiting for the wave, the smile, the motorcade to pass. In retrospect, every ordinary sight and sound of that morning is loaded with unbearable tension. It was the last perfect hour. The open space, meant for celebration, was instead where the trajectory of a presidency and the confidence of a nation came to an abrupt end. That day, a seemingly normal political visit dissolved instantly into a moment of national trauma, leaving behind questions that echo still, half a century later. November 22, 1963, Dallas, Texas. An ordinary day turned into an indelible scar on the American psyche. The atmosphere was electric, filled with anticipation for the arrival of the presidential motorcade. But beneath the celebratory air lay the unsuspecting stage for a national tragedy. In Dealey Plaza, the crowd lined the streets, waiting for a glimpse of President John F. Kennedy. It was a beautiful, clear autumn day. The presidential limousine, an open-top blue Lincoln, slowed as it made the sharp turn from Houston Street onto Elm Street, heading toward the Triple Underpass. At 12:30 p.m., the silence was shattered. The entire world, unknowingly, was about to hold its breath for the span of roughly 26 seconds. The sound of the first shot introduced immediate confusion. For many, it was an odd noise, perhaps a firecracker or an engine backfiring. Few registered the severity of the sudden explosion. Witnesses scattered across the plaza were already turning, trying to locate the source of the noise. The sound seemed to echo, making its origin impossible to pinpoint immediately. Then came the second shot, a definitive sound that instantly clarified the horror. Confusion morphed into sheer, visceral terror. People in the motorcade and the crowd knew, instinctively, that this was an attack. Eyewitness accounts from those seconds are fractured, defined by noise, motion, and sudden panic. People reported seeing the president slump and chaos erupting around the limousine. Secret Service agents, initially caught off guard, reacted immediately. The motorcade, now a fleeing target, accelerated rapidly toward the shelter of the Stemmons Freeway entrance. The plaza became a scene of shock. Crowds, moments ago cheering, now scattered, ducking behind benches, or simply standing paralyzed, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Attention quickly turned to the building overlooking Elm Street, the Texas School Book Depository. The focal point of suspicion, a symbol of where the shots were believed to have originated. In the immediate minutes, the president was rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital, leaving a stunned Dallas reeling under the sudden, incomprehensible violence. Across the nation, regular programming ceased. The terrible news broke, filtering through radio, then television, halting the flow of life and uniting the country in disbelief. Those brief 26 seconds, the speed of the car, the trajectory of the shots, the reactions of witnesses, became and remain one of the most meticulously analyzed and debated moments in human history. Dealey Plaza now stands as a monument to loss, forever defined by the few fleeting seconds that irrevocably changed the course of the 20th century. The events of November 22, 1963, shattered the American consciousness. The president was dead, but in the immediate chaos, one question demanded an immediate answer. Who was responsible? Dallas, Texas. A city suddenly thrust into the center of a national tragedy. The motorcade route, once lined with cheering crowds, became a crime scene. In the minutes following the shots in Dealey Plaza, a wave of shock, fear, and confusion washed over the nation. Authorities scrambled, not just to understand the scope of the attack, but to secure the city. With the head of state tragically gone, the imperative from Washington down to the local Dallas police was clear: find the killer, and quickly. The country needed accountability. The search for a suspect immediately zeroed in on one individual, a 24-year-old former U.S. Marine named Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald's life was marked by instability, a brief defection to the Soviet Union, and a restless political ideology. He was a man who seemed to exist on the fringe. At the time of the assassination, Oswald was employed as an order checker at the Texas School Book Depository, placing him directly on the motorcade route. After the shooting, Oswald vanished from the book depository. His flight led to a tense, chaotic manhunt across the city of Dallas. Within hours of the assassination, the focus of the investigation tightened sharply around Oswald, who was apprehended in a movie theater after an altercation. The timeline of events, from the shooting at 12:30 p.m. to the subsequent murder of Officer J.D. Tippit and Oswald's capture at the Texas Theater at 1:50 p.m., was condensed and dramatic. Oswald was brought to the Dallas Police Department headquarters, where he was subjected to intense interrogation. His denials, however, were quickly overshadowed by the growing body of circumstantial evidence. The pressure to provide clarity and stability was immense. The priority shifted from a sprawling investigation to establishing a simple, single, accountable narrative. Almost immediately, authorities began framing the story. Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. This, quote, lone assassin theory was rapidly disseminated to calm a terrified nation. Newspapers across the country echoed the official statement. This quick conclusion, supported by initial evidence, was the foundation of the public's understanding of the tragedy. To support the lone gunman narrative, physical evidence was crucial. The official investigation quickly amassed items linking Oswald to the crime. The alleged weapon, a Mannlicher Carcano rifle, was discovered on the 6th floor of the book depository. 3 spent shell casings were found nearby, matching the caliber of the weapon. Ballistics tests quickly determined that the bullets recovered from the scene were fired from the rifle found in the depository. This ballistic evidence cemented Oswald's connection to the act. With the physical evidence presented, the case against Lee Harvey Oswald was deemed closed by initial governmental and law enforcement entities. In the days following the assassination, Oswald was a captive spectacle, paraded before the press, becoming the face of the crime that shocked the world. The official verdict of the lone gunman provided a necessary sense of resolution for a grieving nation. It was a rapid conclusion, meant to restore order in a moment of profound vulnerability. But for many, the official narrative only began the inquiry, leaving behind a persistent shadow of doubt and an unsettling portrait of the man named Lee Harvey Oswald. November 22, 1963, a day that fundamentally altered the American psyche. But the confusion surrounding the president's death has never truly ended. In the golden age of American promise, President John F. Kennedy arrived in Dallas, Texas. The crowds were jubilant, unaware of the tragedy about to unfold. The motorcade moved slowly through Dealey Plaza, a few brief moments of exposure that would become eternally scrutinized. Then, the sounds of gunfire and the rapid, horrifying realization that the unthinkable had happened. The nation instantly plunged into shock, confusion, and fear. Within weeks, the Warren Commission concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. But for millions, the simplicity of this explanation felt profoundly inadequate. Almost immediately, inconsistencies in the evidence and witness testimony began to undermine the single bullet, single gunman theory. The infamous magic bullet trajectory, which supposedly caused 7 non-fatal wounds, defied logic and physics for many analysts, suggesting a far more complex scenario. The Zapruder film, the silent footage of the assassination, appeared to show the fatal shot coming from the front, contradicting the official finding of a single shooter behind the motorcade. It was this collision between visual evidence and official conclusions that permanently eroded public trust, sowing the seeds of doubt across the country. If Oswald did not act alone, who else was involved? Numerous influential theories quickly emerged, pointing to forces far more powerful than a lone gunman. One of the most enduring theories suggests that elements within the CIA or FBI, perhaps seeking revenge or fearing the president's policies, orchestrated the murder. Others implicated the mafia, angered by the Attorney General's crackdown, or anti-Castro Cuban exiles seeking retribution for the failed Bay of Pigs invasion. Decades of secrecy and delayed document releases only intensified the public's appetite for alternative explanations. Each time documents were held back, the belief that the government was covering up the truth became further entrenched. For many Americans, the ongoing secrecy transformed the question of who killed JFK into a deeper distrust of the institutions meant to protect them. The persistent contradictions, from the impossible bullet trajectory to the direction of the fatal shot, ensure that the case remains wide open in the public consciousness. The assassination of President Kennedy transcended a simple criminal case. It became a permanent mystery embedded in the fabric of American history. Though decades have passed, the intense search for clarity continues, fueled by the feeling that the complete truth about that terrible day in Dallas has yet to be revealed. Decades after the event, the shadow of the assassination still stretches across American history. But the narrative did not end with the shot. It began with the investigations that followed. In the immediate shock, the public demanded answers, a framework of understanding to contain the chaos. The nation needed certainty, and it needed it fast. The sudden loss of a leader, followed quickly by the murder of the alleged killer, created an unprecedented void. A conclusive explanation was paramount for stability. To establish the official truth, President Lyndon B. Johnson established a formal body. The process of official scrutiny began almost immediately, setting the stage for decades of debate. The official inquiry was known as the President's Commission on the Assassination of President Kennedy, or simply, the Warren Commission. Its mandate was clear: to evaluate all facts surrounding the assassination and report its findings to the American public and the world. For 10 months, the commission gathered evidence, reviewed documents, and took testimony. The official hearings sought to construct a single, comprehensive narrative. In September 1964, the commission delivered its conclusion: Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. The case, officially, was closed, but the report, intended to soothe the nation, instead fueled suspicion. Its complex findings and unanswered questions generated widespread public dissent and the birth of persistent doubts. The public's skepticism never truly faded, forcing subsequent governments to revisit the case, initiating new investigations years after the initial report. These periodic reviews were a response to the enduring belief that the full story had not been told, an attempt to finally quiet the critics. Each new body, from Senate committees to the House Select Committee on Assassinations, brought fresh eyes, but often encountered the same conflicting evidence. The government struggled to reconcile the need for official closure with a public that increasingly saw any subsequent report as part of a cover-up, deepening the rift of mistrust. Decades later, the gradual release of millions of pages of declassified government documents promised to shine a definitive light on the secret history of the case. Visuals of government archive rooms overflowing with files confirm the sheer volume of material generated, a digital and paper trail spanning half a century. But the release of these files, intended to provide transparency, often had the opposite effect. Fragmented information only fueled more theories and speculation. In a cruel irony of history, almost every attempt by the government to definitively close the case only exposed new anomalies or unexamined details, ensuring the questions would continue. The legacy of the investigations is not resolution, but methodology, the constant, analytical revisiting of history driven by persistent skepticism. This case remains a touchstone for public faith in institutions, a constant reminder that for some histories, a definitive, universally accepted end may never be reached. The analytical and unresolved debate continues, securing the assassination a permanent place in the shadowlands of American historical inquiry. The year was 1963. The day, November 22nd. But for many, the assassination of John F. Kennedy is not a fixed point in history, but an open wound. Why, after 6 decades, does the murder of a president still hold such power over the American psyche? It is because this tragedy struck at the very core of our optimism, replacing hope with a pervasive, unresolved doubt. We revisit the moments that changed everything, a scene etched permanently into the collective memory of a nation. The motorcade, slow and exposed, moving through a crowd celebrating a young leader, completely unaware of the fate awaiting them. Dealey Plaza, not just a place, but a permanent stage where time stopped and innocence was shattered. From the official narrative to the competing theories, the details of that weekend continue to reverberate across the decades. Archived headlines scream the immediate shock, the arrest, and the unbelievable spiral of events that followed in those critical 48 hours. And at the center, the lone figure of Lee Harvey Oswald, a man whose identity remains as contested as his actions. The events in Dallas forced Americans to question the foundations of their government and the transparency of its highest offices. The lingering presence of sealed government documents ensures that the skepticism surrounding the truth will never truly dissipate. For millions, the Warren Commission report was not an ending, but merely the start of a deep and necessary inquiry. The physical geography of the crime scene itself still holds powerful, almost mystical significance. The infamous grassy knoll and the book depository loom large in the imagery of the day, physical landmarks forever connected to the violence. Each witness account, filtered through panic and trauma, adds another layer to a mosaic that remains stubbornly incomplete. The death of Kennedy was a rupture point, casting a long, enduring shadow over every administration that followed. It taught a generation that the highest office was vulnerable, and that power could be seized by unpredictable forces. The memory of November 22nd has fueled a persistent distrust, a conviction that the full truth is still being withheld. The story of JFK's assassination continues to haunt us not just as history, but as an endless mystery. Some events become more than history because the unanswered questions never stop echoing in the heart of a free society. It is a reflection of our collective need to understand the incomprehensible, to find order in chaos. And until those echoes finally fade, the past remains present.